Find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Spring Bar. Glad to have you here. I am Florida Mike with my co-host Joe in the OC, and as you can see, we're joined by one of our OG guests, Jason.
Back in the day.
At Watchrolling, and now from the Watchrolling Podcast. I don't think when you were on the first time that you had the podcast yet.
No.
That was kind of an afterthought.
I don't think so. I think I had my little toner mic when nice people like you invited me on the show to run my mouth.
Well, you were talking about it. You were talking like, I want to do this and I want to talk about veterans issues and veterans within the watchmaking space. And look at you now, man.
I know.
90 plus episodes.
You guys, pretty much. I'm coming up on episode 90. And you guys are one of the, spring boards, not the spring bar, but I mean, because when a spring bar goes boing, it's usually a problem. But a spring board does, it's not too bad. But yeah, it's been a fun little ride so far, man. Definitely.
It's great to have you back on. We got a really cool topic to discuss today. Couple of housekeeping things real quick. Number one, I have a very white background. Okay, I'm not sitting at the bar. Nobody liked the bar scene. So I don't have the studio anymore. That is gone. So I'm recording where I'm at right now. Hopefully the audio is better, the view is better, and then I'll just build on this. And so over time I'll have a cool background like Joe or Jason again, and I'll figure something out. Number two, last week's episode or last episode 69, when Joe and I were together. Audio, I am sorry. You're just talking about it. Have good audio. Don't skimp on the audio. But our audio was horrible last episode, and I apologize. We were using Joe's computer. Joe's computer, my mic, the two just weren't working out really well. We were in a very echoey kitchen. Hopefully you still enjoyed it, but I apologize for the way that it sounded. We'll get back to normal.
Yeah, Mike, that really sucked. I'm
moving. It really did.
But I will say, Mike's bar is much better in person than it is on screen.
I'm going to tell you right now, it was top 5 recorded in a kitchen podcast episodes I've ever listened to. So I don't know what anyone else was complaining about. And for the record, I didn't think your bar background was that bad. I don't know what the heck people. I mean, what do you want, man? Like, it's bars in your name of your podcast.
Right. And that was why I thought it was pretty cool to actually sit behind a bar and do it. The problem was, number one, the echo was just way too much. Number two, and I agree, the camera distance was real far. You could see everything, but when it comes to holding things up on camera.
When Mike's trying to say, well, here's my watch. This is what I'm wearing today. Isn't that nice?
So it just, I don't know. Moving forward, it
was nice that you two guys were together though in the same place.
It was fun, dude. It was fun.
You could hear you could really hear like the general watch enthusiast, joy happening.
It was fun. It was fun to have the time to be able to spend it together. Now, granted, the type A on steroids cleaning regimen that Mike employs is
In Mike's defense, he is in Florida. There's a lot of bugs in Florida. And if you don't keep a place clean, the bugs will come inside.
I don't think it has to do with bugs. I don't think bugs are engaged in this. I think
I'm here for you, Mike.
I'm telling you, man, I was getting ready to put on like a hairnet and those extra special shoes that you wrap your galoshes in to make sure that you like clean room. That's about where we were.
I get it.
Okay. All right. Moving forward. Drinks and watches. I'm going to go last because I am wearing my new watch.
I know. All right. Okay.
Jason, know what it is.
You're the guest. You're guest of honor. You can go.
Oh, I am drinking. Let's start with a drink.
There you go.
Please.
It is muggy, not as muggy as Florida, but it is Virginia muggy. When you could tell by the condensation on this, and we have the air conditioning on. A Sauvignon Blanc. A slightly heavy pour, a French.
Well, okay, but what brand?
It's a Maile, Maile.
Ooh.
Bella Reserve. Listen, it ain't fancy. This was less than $10.
Where's it from?
from France. French one. I got it from Total Wine, a 92 rating for like less than $10. You know what we could do? I'll cut this quick because we're on a watch podcast now, but we should find the same wine at Total Wine. We should drink it, take notes, and then sit down once a month and talk.
I'm in.
Easy day.
I'm in.
Easy day.
Oh God, I'll do it with the bottle.
Yeah,
great. What do you wear?
On my wrist today is the Omega Seamaster 300 Professional, reference number 2255.80.
Okay.
Otherwise known as the electric blue dial.
So what strap is that on? Is that the OEM strap?
No, I have the OEM bracelet now.
Right.
I feel bad because my camera. This is the one with the either lacquered or enameled electric blue dial.
Depending on who you talk to.
Yep. Stainless steel polished bezel. That's all OEM. The strap is a great hybrid strap from Artem.
Do you like that? Do you like that art? I've been reading a lot about them, like the sailcloth and the other. And I'm a fan of sailcloth without question.
Yeah, this one's nice because it's got the FKM rubber on the bottom, and they do nice channeling down there. It's almost
it's like those ones that I got.
It's like the
when you were out.
Fits perfectly. I mean, you can look. That's on my 7 5/8 inch wrist. This watch has got a 41.5 millimeter case diameter. Right? It's super. It's barely thick. 12 millimeters. You know, made in the 2000s. It's part of that Robert Blake line, but this is the blue one.
Yeah.
So broadsword hands, fully loomed, big giant loom pip at the 12, loom indices, sorry, at the 12, and just a great wearing watch. But that I'll invite anyone to look it up online. It's 2255.80 electric blue. This dial has to be seen in light to be believed. It is insane, and that's this is basically an NWA for me too. I've had it for I think less than 2 weeks.
Oh, no kidding. Really?
Yeah.
Look at us.
I moved mountains, man.
Breaking new ground. All right. I'll go next. Yep. I have got on my father's Seiko DX square case brushed with funky orange and the red Sunday date because that's what we do.
Yeah, I love that watch.
I love it too. This is a weird one though, because there's a little bit of information. It came on mesh, but this is a aftermarket mesh. I don't even remember what my dad had it on. This is the watch I remember him wearing.
Oh wow.
Right. And
it's pretty sweet.
It is. It's like I've got this watch. I have a Seiko that my grandfather had, and then students of mine gifted me a Seiko. So that means I gotta get my son a Seiko, and we'll have 4 generations of Seiko. Which is awkward since I'm a Bulova collector, but you know.
Who's the uncle?
Who was the uncle?
Weird Uncle Willie.
No, that's the joke was lost. That guy that used to be Uncle, and now he has to be called Uncle Straps.
Yeah, as opposed to yeah.
Yeah. Not all jokes fly.
Wow, listen, man. That didn't land. That didn't land at all. That was
you miss 100% of the jokes you don't.
It's true. It's
I'm
true.
Just taking them all.
And in the glass, I am drinking Evan Williams bottled in bond. Oh,
except that's Jim Beam.
That's Jim Beam. That's wrong. No, I am. Oh, shoot, that's right. I am drinking Jim Beam. Jim Beam Rye.
You've had so much of it, you don't even know what you're drinking.
Well, that's the full bottle. This is the nearly. It's going to be a good one. That's all I'm saying.
That's funny.
Hello.
The one thing about Jim Beam is it doesn't stick around very long.
Spring bar recommendation: Sauvignon Blanc, Jim Beam Rye. Mike, what do you got?
So I'm drinking some Blue Moon in my Kona beer glass, and I took off my watch so I can hold it up to the camera.
Oh,
this is my new watch.
Oh wow!
This is a 2020 GHPG nominated Louis. I'm gonna say it the proper way. Louis Irad and Alan Zieberstein.
Nice.
Those are cool.
Collaboration. This is from the Excellence Collection. This is the Le Regulator.
Nice.
You gotta not try French accents, man. It's not coming across.
But it works. It works.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is my.
Right.
Congratulations, man.
That's a fantastic. So do you want to talk about the origin story of that? Or do you want to save that for another day?
No, we can talk about it real quick. It was so. Someone from the watch fam that I know that is local to me has a big heavy hitter collection. Has some stuff that he's trying to move just because he's got something coming in. He's trying to offset the cost a little bit. Sent me 3 watches, pictures of them, and said, "Hey, I'm trying to sell these if you happen to know anybody that's interested." One of which was this watch. I said, "Oh man!" And he's asking just phenomenally low prices for these things.
I've seen the numbers. I shared it. Like, it's stupid low. It's stupid low.
So I told him, I said, "Man, that Louis Erard," I said, "I really wish I could buy it from you. I can't right now. I don't have the money. I had to borrow money to pay expenses for moving, and I got to pay that back first." And he's like, "You know what?" He says, "I'd rather you wear it than it sit and collect dust or go to somebody who doesn't appreciate it." He says, "Help me sell these other 2 watches. This one's yours."
Nice.
And it just, yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
was just in awe, that somebody would do something with a piece like this. And it took a little bit to hit me, especially even when I met up with him and he gave me the watches and I'm looking at it. It didn't quite register, but I've gotten to wear it a couple of times, wore it out a little bit, dressed the part, and it's such a cool watch. And I've always liked these, the Alan Zieberstein, the watches that he does,
the aesthetic
are so funky in color usage.
Yeah.
And the design, they're just phenomenal. And you guys know that I love that kind of stuff. And when I saw these, and he's done collaborations with Bell and Ross and
beautiful
MB&F. Who else has he done stuff with? I'm drawing a blank. A lot of these higher end watch brands he's done collaborations with. He has his own line of stuff. So you can find these out there. I believe this was the first design that he did with Louis Erard. Then there's a later generation regulator, slightly different case than that.
Too. There's some other stuff, but
there's some other stuff. But these are very cool. Each variant limited to 178 pieces worldwide.
Oh wow!
It's just a phenomenal, awesome piece, and I absolutely love it. And
Mike's moving on, Jason. He's moving up. He's going to be up into rarefied air.
Man, I'm gonna tell you something.
Parmigiani Four and MB&F next.
Yeah. I've been looking at some Parmesan. Anyways,
right. You've been looking.
I've been looking. I mean, I got stuff, man. I got stuff I got to sell because I'm realizing I don't have a whole lot of pieces, but I want to wear the stuff I do want to wear, so I got to get rid of some stuff. Just like the gentleman that helped you out with that watch, Mike. Is you'd rather the stuff go to a good home than sit there and collect dust. I don't want to be a hoarder of watches. And I don't even have anywhere near that many, but there are some that just sit there that I don't wear. And it's like, all right, it's time for you to go to a good home. I'll give someone a good price, cut them a solid. You know what I mean? And,
let's see. That's one of the things though that it came up a while ago. And I brought the watch that I got. A friend of mine, he bought a watch and he gave me a Super Seville because it filled the same niche. He's like, "I'd rather it go to you. You'd appreciate it more." And it's like, you know what? Okay, cool. I can pay that forward. Absolutely. And I can make that happen. So the whole idea of the community that we're a part of, that when you're into that community and you're in well, and you are respected, not as a connoisseur necessarily, but as an appreciator.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of the point, because, I mean, let's face it, somebody who shows up with a G-Shock, it's like, you're in. Somebody who shows up with that digital Casio is like, oh yeah, you're in too. And then, okay, we got a Patek Philippe, you got a Rolex, whatever. If you can appreciate all of the different levels, it's like somebody with a vintage swatch.
And that's the thing with this guy, is his collection is just heavy hitter after heavy hitter after heavy hitter after heavy hitter. And when he told me, this is your watch now, that I'm going to pass it to you, this is now yours, I felt bad taking something like this without doing something in return. So I had and I'm known for the Jet Stars and the restorations. I happen to have a Stars and Stripes that I was going to restore and just sell on. And I thought, that is the watch that everybody knows and loves. Everybody knows the red, white, and blue Jetstar motif. He's seen them before on my page and he likes it and he's commented in that. So I have some restored cases. I put one together real nice. I got the original Bulova signed lizard strap, put it on there, made it beautiful for him. And he says, "Oh, it's new watch day for you. I bet you're excited." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But you know what?" I said, "Today's new watch day for you too." I said, "I couldn't let you leave empty-handed." And I gave it to him, and he opened up, and just the look on his face. I mean, the guy hugged me.
Right.
Yeah.
He has all these just big name watches, and here I give him, a little Bulova, and he just appreciated it so much.
But that's
just the joy back and forth.
You get into that idea that it's okay. There's the connoisseur side, there's the collector side, and then there's just the people who appreciate.
The people that just appreciate it, and those are the people that make this whole hobby what it is.
It's a lot more fun that way. I agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
So we got to get into some content here. We could just go on and talk like this forever.
Yeah.
But Jason, you're here for a specific reason.
Yes.
You are, at the time of this recording, in the middle of a very interesting podcast series that involves Veterans Watchmaker Initiative,
VWI,
which is formerly known as Joseph Bulova School for Watchmaking. What it is, well, you know what? I'm going to let you describe it.
Let Jason talk about it. What is it?
But you had the opportunity to go visit the school. What you're doing is you're interviewing some of the graduates from the school. I believe you got to sit down with Sam Cannon, who oversees the school, and you kind of got this behind the scenes look as to how it operates, what it is, and you're getting some really cool feedback through these interviews that you're doing. So we just wanted to have you on and go ahead and inform our listeners, because again, we're real big in the Bulova space, but we don't have a lot of information on the school itself. But it's very important in the history of it, and I think it's something that is really cool that you're shedding some light on it, and it's really neat.
Like what's going to happen with it moving forward. So give us some background on it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But, hold on. There's one more point I want to make real quick.
God damn it, Mike.
Your most recent episode, you interviewed Benjamin Herring.
Yep.
And one thing that he said was he didn't believe that this was real. He thought it was a scam.
Yeah.
Until he really got involved with it. And even as he was halfway through the program, he still didn't believe it was real.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of wanted to just have you on and talk about it, so people know, this really does exist, and this really is a thing. And it really does some good.
Yeah, I'll run you through it. I'll run you through with my history about it. So starting way back, when I started my podcast, I used to have a format where I would do I would do a half hour, because I figure most, people driving back and forth, most commutes are a half an hour. I don't want to lose you. Right. And I would do 15 minutes on some watch topic and then 15 minutes on some veterans resource. So I have a pretty inquisitive mind. So I was just thinking, like, man, there's got to be a place where there's got to be a school or somewhere that does watchmaking or something, right, that has like veterans programs. I wasn't specifically looking for a veteran ran or a veteran centric watchmaking program, but like all kinds of businesses have like a veteran slash of it, right? Like Amazon's got one now and all this other stuff, right? So I stumbled across the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative. And to back up Ben, at first I was like, what? Because most of us veterans are skeptical by nature. And if you've ever known a veteran, I mean, go to San Diego and look at the car lots outside base, right? Come on in, 2% interest.
You dealt with the VA too.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm not going to say anything bad about any government institution. The opinions of on this podcast are my opinions alone, and not the opinions of the United States government. So, but I stumbled across it and I started doing my research, right? So, me being me, I'm not really, shy, and I have no problem running my mouth. I just cold called the school, and then the person that was on the phone that time, and they introduced me to Sam Cannon, and him and I talked, and we scheduled a chance for me to come up here. Now, this was 2020, January of 21, I want to say it was around that time, because COVID was like doing this, I guess. It was like in its wishy-washy period. And but I took a day off of work and I drove up there. And I think Sam was as skeptical as me as I was of the school at first, right? But then I think he could tell that I have I made sure he knew. I'm like, hey, look, I'm just a veteran, retired Navy. I love horology and all this stuff, and I'm a watch enthusiast. But if I could get the word out, even on my small blog, about this school, then I would love to. So I spent the whole day up there. I mean, the whole day, from like the morning when the class started all the way through. I'll touch more on that in a minute, but I'll discuss the very much paraphrase history of the school and what they do. So the school, was founded post World War II, and it was founded by Joseph Bulova's son named Arde Bulova, if I'm mispronouncing that.
Yeah.
And the school was basically a place for disabled veterans from World War II to get a start in watchmaking. Now, I want to tell the audience that's listening, your audience, this is actual watchmaking. This isn't watch assembling. This isn't like dropping some pieces. No, this is the art of watchmaking. So much so that they even learn how to do stuff in the advanced course, like they're making like bridges and stuff like that, right? So we're not talking watch assembly. So the veterans that go to school learn watchmaking. Get that out of the way first, right? So they founded the school. The school went on for a while, and then the school closed in 1993. And then, Mr. Cannon, I think he's a retired police officer. He was really into watchmaking. He went to Switzerland and all this stuff and learned how to make watches, and came back and basically, got the school opened back up, right? All the financials, working with the city, blah, 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 blah. It's in Odessa, Delaware. They got the school up and running. So the school is ran out of an old ambulance depot center, right? So back when if you were in the ambulance, they were just transporting you. There wasn't anything going on because there was like 1 foot of headroom in the back of the ambulance, right? So they've taken this and they've converted it into a schoolhouse. I'll touch more on that in a second. And the school's been going, and they were able to get up and running, and the school is broken down into like what I call 3 sections. So first and foremost, you have to be able to pass a dexterity test in order to go to the school. We're dealing, if you've ever had an exhibition case back, very, very small, very, very small gears and springs and, you name it, all these parts, right? Screws, the whole nine. So they work with you the dexterity test. That doesn't automatically disqualify people. I was told when I was at the school that they even work with people. There was, if one of the stories I remember correctly, there was a Marine with Bell's palsy. They were able to help get the Marine splints on his arms so he could balance his hands, and he passed the dexterity test, right?
Oh.
So I want to lead with, the school is in Odessa, Delaware. They will work with veterans organizations near where you're from to help you get travel out there, transportation to the school to take the dexterity test, and transportation back. So as long as you work with the school, they can work with veterans organizations near you. And there's plenty of people that do charitable stuff like that to get you a plane ticket out there to do what you got to do. So if you pass the dexterity test, then you have, or the dexterity aptitude test, and you're admitted, then there's a watch technician program. You hear me and a lot of the watchmakers call this the quartz program. And I think that I'm going to stop doing that the best I can, because that's kind of a disservice to what they do. It's a 6 weeks course as of time of the posting from the website, 6-week course, 240 hours of intensive training. There's going to be a final test required by all students to complete successfully in order to be considered for the mechanical watchmaker program for the next one. So when a student passes this course, they're going to be able to do standard repairs on all types of quartz watches, and you can enter the market as a quartz watch technician. And the skill set they're going to learn. Oh, go ahead.
So what is this quartz watch technician?
Yes, that's what they're called.
We're not talking replacing batteries.
No, we're talking, and I'll read to you what they're going to do, because they list everything on the school.
There we go.
The school does a really good job, and I'll send you guys the links for this stuff so you can put them in the show notes. But they even tell you the skill set is perfect for a retail environment, working at a jewelry department service counter, or an independent contractor completing repairs off-site. Now, let me tell you why this matters. This matters because if you're a disabled veteran, and let's just say your job, like Ben was a combat infantry assaultman, or myself, I was a firefighter for 20 years. And then right before I retired, my legs blew up and I can't really be a firefighter anymore, right? You've been doing something for X amount of years. And I'm here to tell you, one enlistment of 4 years is just the same as 20 years of something else. You now have to, and if you can't do that anymore, you have to figure out quickly something else, right? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of us people who went in the military, but not because the military was like what we want to do our entire lives, right? It's part of who we are, and we're proud of that. But, we are capable of doing other things. We just don't necessarily know what we wanted to do. We didn't go to college to become a teacher like my wife, or, someone that wants to do something specifically. We kind of went in the military and we're like, okay, here we are. That's what we're going to do. And then now we're almost done. It's time to go. So it's not to say that the people that end up going to the military don't know what they want to do. Yeah. But I'm a huge proponent of it with my students. And I'm like, you don't know what you want to do? Have you considered the military? Yeah. Because it's going to give you a real great opportunity to figure out who you are
and maybe where you want to go later, but it's also going to give you a level of self-confidence, or it certainly should give you a level of self-confidence that's going to allow you to succeed in just about anything else. And I know that recruiters are always looking for former military because they are able to excel with very limited, instruction or limited anything else. So like the looking at veterans, untapped resource as far as I'm concerned across the board.
Yeah. So this could be, great points. And this just graduating this course, imagine, you do become an independent contractor and you do have the wherewithal to go to different jewelry stores in your local area, and they need watchmakers or people that can do this stuff, right? Because the areas they cover in the watch technician program are introductions to tools, proper uses, and their maintenance, right? So check this out. When you join the military, specifically the Navy, there is a book called Tools and Their Uses, because they understand not everybody comes from a mechanical background, right? You need to really know what you can and can't use a screwdriver or the different wrenches for. You don't want to use a pipe wrench on something that doesn't require pipe wrench torque, right? So, this introduction to tools, proper usage, and their maintenance is important. Introduction to quartz theory, because it's a lot more than a crystal being there with a freaking current sent to it. It's more than that, right? Introduction to testing equipment, electrical diagnosis and fault detection, circuit board repair, case opening and closing techniques, because there are a whole video series on YouTube about watchmaking, about how you just don't go willy-nilly open up a case back with any piece of equipment if you want to keep that case back. Like someone doesn't want to send their watch in. Like if I sent my quartz Rolex and I don't want my case back coming looking like a cat was clawing all over it, right? Cell replacement, basic movement cleaning, movement replacement, gasket replacement, stem crown, tube replacement, crystal replacement, waterproofing, bracelet adjustments, strap adjustments, and case and bracelet refinishing. I know for a fact, because I have a damaged hand, that when I get a pin and collar bracelet and I want it sized, I go down to my local jeweler down the street and I pay them $10 to $20 to size it, because I'd rather support a small business and not get frustrated and drop something on my carpet that I'm not going to find for 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. So that is
the right tool for the job,
exactly, and the right person, and I'm employing someone, right? So just imagine if you were a disabled veteran and you were having, some of these guys are struggling, and you get through this course, and now you're able to, go around town, work at your own pace, work for different people, right? You're in a different place all the time if that's your thing, because not everyone wants to sit in the same place all the time. And you could actually, make a little bit of a living for yourself in spite of your disabilities going forward. So that's the watch technician program. And it's 6 weeks, 240 hours. Now you have to pass this one in order to go to what they call the Watchmaker program. Now, according to the website, as of this posting, the full Watchmaker program is 16 months in length. That's 2,560 hours of intensive watch repair training plus 3 months of internship, 480 hours for a total of 19 months. When the student completes this program, they'll be fully capable of making any repair to a mechanical or quartz watch, right? They're going to have to satisfactorily complete a competency test for each new module. There's going to be a comprehensive final exam, and then they're going to create a course school watch, which when I went to the tour, they were finishing that up. They were building their school watches, which is pretty cool. Yeah, they get to build a school watch. And that's the watch.
Was it based off of like a pocket watch movement?
Or no, it's there. If I remember correctly, they have assorted movements there, and you get to pick the one that you want to pick. Oh, and I'm talking everything, like the movement, the case, the whole nine, right? And then the student may provide 3 months of internship to VWI at the service center under the supervision of a VWI staff administrator. And then the areas they're going to do tools again, micro mechanics, making tools, and annealing, heat treating, right? The cool stuff. Introduction to watch theory and basic repair, lathe and turning, right? So real machinery stuff, man, but done on the micro level. We're not talking big old lathes. We're talking little ones. Staffing, jeweling, making parts to include stems, staffs, and jewel settings. Escapements with emphasis on the Swiss lever. They work on hairspring manipulation and vibration, which I want to say it was Jason that told me, or maybe Romeo, that was, probably Jason, that hairspring thing, or no, it was Ben. The hairspring thing is a pain in the butt. Like you got to be really delicate. And it took them a while, if I remember correctly. Then they do watch case restoration and repair, case and bracelet service, calendar mechanisms and complications, chronographs, precision timing, and then they teach them some business practices, right? And so that's a general rundown of what the school offers. And I think it's important to look. But
and to touch on like what you were saying before, this is not just learning how to service a watch. This is legitimate watchmaking skills that they're coming out at the end of. So that's that plus the first program. So it's roughly 2 years worth of training, a little more than 2 years worth of training to go through the entire program if you want to go through the whole thing, correct?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yep, 16 months plus 3 months. And then there's a little bit, full disclosure, there's a little bit of time between when a class finishes and another one starts.
Yeah.
But people might have questions like, well, what do they do in the meantime? So just so you know, and this is where circling back to your too good to be true thing, right? And what Ben said and what I thought. Mm-hmm. None of this cost anything to the veteran.
And that was going to be my next question is
this is free.
What do they pay to attend this school?
Nothing. It is free of charge.
Right. It's supported through all of these different initiatives. I know that Bulova throws some support in. Vortic has done a bunch with it. They get stuff that are donated by manufacturers.
And additionally, if they're from out of state, what does it cost them to come live and go to the school?
So number one, so room and board, right? So room and board, when I was up there, and I know it's expanded a little bit, they basically have, and when I say it's a small street, it's a small street. It's like a cool old school town, like smaller street. Mm-hmm. They have apartments across the street from the school that the students get to stay in. So room and board's taken care of, right?
Yeah.
When I was there, a lot of the local businesses provide food. So they had like pizzas up the butt. You know what I mean? Like, excuse me for sniffling, allergy season, but they had pizzas and snacks and stuff like that, and it's just like everything's taken care of. And then, when I was speaking to Ben, Ben talked about his time there. It's like a barracks style thing, and everyone works together. Everyone hangs out, like the class that's working together. They'll let them stay there and do. Some of the students are allowed to stay there in between their classes convening and do service work, right? So it's nothing. And even the travel out there, you can work with your local veterans organizations to cover the cost of travel. I'm sure if you call the day before you're supposed to leave, it'll be hard. But as long as you plan ahead of time, you can get out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they help them find work at the end. That's the thing, bro. Like they help them find jobs and
legitimate jobs with some legitimate brands.
Oh yeah.
You want me to? I mean, I don't want to screw up the
list it. Do it.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about
the one gentleman and where did he work for and the offers that he got and some of the stuff that he turned down.
Yeah. So episode 87, the episode 1 of the series is Jason Adams, who is a watchmaker now, has been for a while. He's an inaugural course graduate. So the very first course, Army veteran who happened by chance into this course when he was at the VA and a lady had mentioned something to him about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's nuts, man.
His first job upon graduating the VWI, he worked for 3 years at Tiffany's of New York.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to let that sink in for a second.
That's huge, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Tiffany's of New York.
In New York, the flagship of Tiffany's.
And he worked there for 3 years, and then he worked for what I inferred to be a large either watch retailer in the area. He didn't give a name on this one, understandably so, but a large watch retailer that does watch servicing, right? And if I remember correctly, that's the one place that started putting him through the Rolex certifications.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's like the third tier of Rolex certifications. So then fast forward, he's looking for he's looking at new jobs. And I'm actually the same thing, man. I don't like to do the same thing for more than 2.5, 3 years, right? If I can get something else. He was looking for a new job and he had an offer from Patek Philippe. Yeah. I'll say that again. An offer from Patek. Not like he went there. They offered him a job. But he was also looking at local places and he found a local mom and pop jeweler near his place where he lived. And he went in just to give his resume one day. And the lady saw the resume and she's like, well, would you like to talk to the owner? Because he's here. And he's like, sure. So they bring him upstairs. He talks to the owner. The owner is like, essentially like, here's how much I'd like to pay you. When can you start? And he's like, I could start like next week.
Yeah.
And dude, he is a watchmaker who works 3-minute walk from his house.
Yeah.
It's
Every
one of
single
these
day.
things, man. Like we've talked about this before. Trying to find somebody who's competent, who can
Yeah.
service whatever, and create parts, reconstruct parts, and just because when you start looking at the history of vintage watchmaking, the watches that I think we've all probably got something from the 50s. It's like, okay, so that's a 75-year-old watch.
Yeah.
That you aren't going to find an off-the-shelf part for.
No.
You're just not. So that means it either needs to come from something else or it needs to be recreated. And people who can have that skill, who can do that.
It's funny you bring that up, Joe, because Ben said that specifically in episode 89. Ben said he has a setup in his house. And for a lot of the vintage repairs he does, sometimes I just have to make the piece because the piece doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And that's crucial. I mean, especially because it's funny because like I've determined that I'm not really a vintage guy. I'm a neo vintage guy. And the reason why is because I don't want to deal with finding all the old stuff. You know what I mean?
It's
for
getting
vintage
harder.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for you vintage guys, there's people out there attempting to get to the point to be able to, some of them can do it now.
The thing that's really interesting though, like when you get into the vintage space, the technology that existed at the time, it's really easy to recreate today. And so it's one of these moments. It's like, okay, yeah, in the 1950s, this was exorbitantly expensive. However, 2024, 2025, it's not too bad. Like I can do this. I can do this with a relatively simple set of tools. I can do this with a relatively, I wouldn't say basic, but a relatively simple set of skills. Like if I've had competent training, I could recreate for you any gear you want because the specs are online. I can find it. I can recreate for you any bushing that you want. I can recreate for you any of these things because the tooling is so good now. The ability to recreate it is so good. And I love that about what VWI is teaching because, I talk to people about automotive repair. It's like, okay, I can't fix every car. I can fix BMW or I can fix Toyota or I can fix, and when you get into the watchmaking space, it's like, oh no, you have a vintage Seiko. Yeah, I can fix that. I can fix a pin lever Timex. I can fix a Patek Philippe. I can fix it. And it's all available to them. And to me, I love that about looking at the watch repair and the competent watchmaker, somebody who gets that designation,
And just so go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I was going to say the reason why I wanted you to tell that story was just to let the listeners know the quality of education that these folks are getting at the school. It's not just a subpar basics course where you just half learn a new skill. I mean, you're getting such a quality education provided to you at no cost.
There's a depth and breadth to it.
Yeah.
To the point where you can go out and get a legitimate job working for one of these brands.
Yeah.
If you put in the hustle, the payoff is huge.
That's it. And let me expound on that a little bit. If you listen to the 3 episodes so far, so we have 2 graduates, both watchmakers, and a student who graduated the watch technician course who's waiting for the watchmakers course. The next episode is going to be a young person who's waiting to start the very first one, and then I'll eventually get to Sam, and then we'll talk with him. But each one of the students so far has talked about how much, and this is if you're military, you understand what I'm saying. I don't know about the newer generations, but where I come from, what generation I come from, all of your classes were like they discussed the VWI's courses. The instructors aren't there just to tell you you're wrong and to fail you. They really want you to get this information and get on board, and so you can get out and do some good stuff, right? So it is a learning environment, right? And then they encourage teamwork amongst the students, and then the students even do it on their own. They understand, like, there's 6 of us, right? Maybe one of us understands this one concept a lot better than the rest of us, and that one person can explain it in a way where the other 5 of us get it. And you're like, oh, okay, now I get it, right? It's a. I mean, ultimately everything's competitive, but it's not a competitive, cutthroat environment. They use the term family a lot. It's a family environment where we're all learning together. We do stuff together, but when push comes to shove and it's time to show up on Monday and start doing coursework, we're doing coursework. And I think that's important for the audience to understand, because that is the very single thing that you missed. I almost can guarantee I can speak for like 98% of veterans. The one thing you miss when you get out, regardless of 4 years, or not everyone has the same experience, I get that, but 4 years or 20 years, is you miss the camaraderie of working together and solving problems with a group of people who have the same general mission in mind. And it's difficult. It's hard to get back, right? And this school does that in some way. And so, one of the questions you guys had for me were my ideas about this series. I'd like to address that now before it gets lost in the sauce, because we still got a lot more stuff to talk about. But to everyone listening at home, like, I can't explain to you how important it is to find something meaningful upon your whatever separation from the military is. Whether you're a 4-year person who got out honorably, someone who got out 10, 12 years, which sometimes can be the hardest, or you're a retiree like me who retired and they basically told you it was time to leave. It is very, very difficult to find something meaningful that you did, as meaningful afterwards as what you did when you were in service, right? Because the military is all encompassing. It's who you work with, it's where you work at, and then it's what you're doing to get, I had an old SEAL that used to say shipmate, self, right? Like, you put the ship first, shipmate, and then self last. And it really is that way, right? Because, my first ship was the Enterprise. I lived on her for 4.5 years. And when I left, I was actually like, I had a moment when I walked off for the last time. I was like, oh man, like, I'm going to shore duty and stuff, but it's like, I was like scared for a second. Yeah. I was like, this is my ship, like, I took care of her she took care of me. And then, your shipmates, which is a term we use in Navy, which is like, everyone you work with. And it could be like close level shipmates, like the people in your work center or your division, and sometimes out. And then lastly, yourself. So my idea was to just get across to the audience, anyone listening, that there is a school out there. If you are the relative of a veteran, the friend of a veteran, if you're just a coworker of a veteran, anyone that's having a difficult time, anyone that's, not finding fulfillment in what they do, that there's an opportunity out there with a school, a legitimate school that will take your veteran in, as long as your veteran is willing to put the work in, because they're not giving you anything there. Yeah. I want to state that for the record. Like,
no, it's not a gift, because you can't, this is not a natural thing. So you have to know, you have to be willing to put in the work.
You got to put the work in, right? And if you're willing to put the work in, and here's the only other thing I can say, and it couldn't be any more perfect for a watch podcast. If you're willing to dedicate the time, what did we say? 24 months total.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put in that work to change the rest of your life, and the 3 instructors so far, the 3 students so far that have said it has changed their lives from some of the darkest times to where, Ben was like, I'm happy. Stuff is good right now.
But I mean, everything about that, when you think about the military mission is not an ambiguous one. And when you start looking at the watch space, it's also not ambiguous. I have a watch. It doesn't run. I have now fixed the watch and it does run. I have met my goal and now I can move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And so there's a level of clarity that comes with that. And I'm presenting a challenge. There is a bunch of analytical exercise I got to do. There's a bunch of physical exercise I got to do, variety of things that I have to put together to make that happen. I can see that working for a veteran being a perfect fit, a perfect mesh.
Well, and here's the other thing too. And from what I've learned so far, listening to these first 3 episodes, you don't have to be a watch guy to get into this program. None of these gentlemen that you've interviewed so far are watch collectors or watch guys, had any interest in watches whatsoever.
There was no wrist checks in all 3 episodes.
Yeah.
There was, because they didn't have a watch to wrist checks. They don't wear them, bro.
In fact, the most recent one, when you ask I forget what you call it. I'm going to call it the hot take question. Like, what's your obscure view of the watch hobby kind of thing? Yeah. And he's like, I don't understand watch collectors. Like, I have a watch and I wear that watch. And if I'm not going to wear that watch, what's the point of having it? Yeah. And it's interesting because you get these different viewpoints from these guys who aren't involved in watches at all when they get started in this program. Number two, it seems like the three gentlemen so far were all lost in their way in one way or another. And this kind of brought them back. It focused them, it centered them, and it got them involved in something, like you said, that just changed their lives. So I think that's important to note those two things. It's
a club I'm very familiar with, man. Like I'll be honest with the audience right now. Like, it's a club that I'm very, very familiar with. And there was a time in my life where I was concerned for a minute about how my life was going to go. And, I was fortunate enough, kind of like Jason ran across that lady at the VA for hospital, or Romeo did, or Ben, did his own research. I was fortunate enough to run across a buddy whose wife's company needed someone with my rating experience that could write. It was by total chance. I took the leap of faith, and within a week and a half, I had a job that was paying me way more than I was making doing the crappy security job I was doing, because my legs didn't work like they used to, and I couldn't be a firefighter anymore. But there was a moment where I was sitting there like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can relate to all three of those people. I can relate to any veteran that's done that. I can relate to. And I've since, taken that opportunity and realized that my skill set is solving problems, and I will continue to make money solving problems, because that's what I do. I feel like the watchmaking thing lines up for veterans like that. Just kind of like Joe said, you have a watch in front of you. It's got a problem. Ben even said that in his interview.
But that's what he said. It's like, that's his mission, to complete that. And he doesn't move on until he's done with that mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like anything else. Like, it's, you go to work, there's a problem, you're done. You see what you did that was better, that repaired it, and you get to leave for the day knowing that you did something, because there's a tangible piece of evidence that your work was successful and you completed it. And so that's the gist of my whole idea for the kind of round up the idea portion of the interview series. I just want as many people to hear about this school as possible. So support will be there for the VWI for the length of its existence. I want this school to far surpass me or anyone else. So as long as we have veterans coming back from wars and conflicts, there is another opportunity for them somewhere else to be able to do something. They may not even know they love it. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So here's my next question for you. How much enrollment can they accommodate per class? Now, it's a small school, because they only have so many instructors, and it's not like a Nick Hayek school of watchmaking, which can accommodate larger classes. So how many do you know can they accommodate per class?
The last time I went in there and saw the classroom, this is a question I can ask and get back with you guys. But the last time I saw was like, I think 20 to 25 seats.
Oh, really? That much? Well, that's bigger than what I expected.
And just so you know, I'm sure Joe knows this, because Joe's I'm referring as a teacher. There's always a instructor to student ratio that you want to keep, or else people can get lost, right?
If you can keep it around 20, you're in real good shape. But for that kind of hands-on thing,
for something also, like this,
you got to meet people where they're at,
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so if we're looking at the introductory course, that'll be simple. When they get into the mechanical watchmaking, and they get into complications, that you're going to have a whole differentiation that starts to come with that. But 25 is good. You can accomplish a lot with 25.
And I've never asked like what their attrition rates are and all that stuff, because I figure
that's not the story.
Yeah, it's not the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and any veteran will know that not everybody makes it through every single course that you sign up for. You know what I mean? People. But
I think that it's something that's really important to point out, that their goal is not to fail people, and their goal is not to make this difficult, or to make this uncomfortable, or to make it impossible. Their goal is to produce watchmakers, and you should be able to rise to whatever your ability will allow. Yeah. It's like, okay, great. You might not be creating new complications. That might not be your end in life, but you can certainly replace movements. Yeah. You can certainly troubleshoot. You can clean a dial. You can remove a handset. You can do that sort of stuff. And that in and of itself is massively valuable in this day and age. So, there's value in all of the levels that they're going through. And I think that's really important to note.
Agreed.
So you talked about, you got to go up there and see the school firsthand. You got to be there from the beginning to the end. Just what was your experience? What did you take away from being able to be there for a full day at the school, watching, the process and how everything happens?
One of the best uses of space I've seen in a long time, right? Which, like I said, it's an old ambulance depot, right? So, I don't know, for people of a certain age, you don't know what that is, but like, when I was a little kid, I remember they didn't have like real ambulances. They were like station wagons, where they were hoping you were alive when you got to the hospital. So that's what the building is. I'll give you guys a link to my website, and you can show the thing on there. You'll look at it. You can tell it's an old like public, government building. But the best use of space I've seen, I walked in, you walk in the door, and to the right, there's 2 labs. And then there's, to the left, there's a dexterity lab and another lab. And then there's a little museum. And then they have like a little kitchen to the left and all this other stuff. And, this is going off my memory when I was there. And then just really put together laboratories. They got the microscopes. They got, each one of the students has a screen, and they're able to do all the micro stuff. And then, each student has a lab station. And then the instructor has, 1 or 2 instructors. They have their own like instructor station with it. They can basically see the other students. They can see the students' camera views.
Yeah.
So they can watch them and help them over there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But just an environment of learning. That's the thing I noticed. Like, there's a saying that only happy sailor is a complaining sailor, but, I didn't hear anyone griping.
Really?
I didn't hear anyone griping. I saw a wonderful interaction between the instructors and the students. They were doing lab work. So, anyone familiar with education, I might have missed like whatever the, opening part of the lab, the actual textbook stuff was, but they were all doing lab work. And one thing I remembered is they went to lunch, and there was a couple of students who were just hung out in the lab and kept doing stuff, kept working on their stuff, instead of eating, and that stuck out to me, because I'm like, okay, they're getting after it. Right.
Yeah. I get that.
You know what I mean? And then, general tour of the place. It felt like a wonderful place to learn, a place who not only did everyone working there understand their mission, but the students understood the mission as well. And that means that the instructors and the institution are explaining the overall point of this whole thing well enough to where everyone's buying in and everyone's going forward.
Yeah.
Working together.
Like when you're dealing with the veteran population, it's like, you can't BS me. I know how this works. I need results. I need factual base. It's got to be real, and you've got to be legit with me, and you got to be real with me, because I'm going to see through it otherwise.
Yeah.
So they've got to be able to understand not just they got to be able to see the arc and like where this is going to go, where this is going to take me, because if I don't reach that goal, then this is a waste of my time.
Yeah. And it speaks to the quality of the education too, and those instructing, because, I'll be honest, man, like I was a firefighter in the Navy. We go to a lot of different schools, and, there's some schools where you're just like, man, these dudes are mailing it in, and I was an instructor for a long time, and, at various different capacities. And the one thing I never did, I can honestly say, was mail in a lesson. Even if it was like something like de-smoking, which like, just getting smoke off a ship, one of the most boring lessons you're ever going to teach. And I would like still try to smile and laugh and make the students laugh and tell funny stories in there, at least give them something to take away from that. And that's the thing I noticed was, it's just all the students were engaged. Like they were, I can't tell you, there's like 3 or 4 times where students that were working on their final project would walk up to Sam and show him something, and Sam would like, yeah, try this, or yeah, that looks good, blah, blah, blah. And then he would go back. The student would go back. Right. And no, there was constructive criticism, which everyone needs, but there wasn't like, hey, dummy, which I can tell you happens in some military schools. I mean, I don't know about now, but in my day, I sound like the old man on my lawn now, but in my day, they'd be like, hey, dummy, you know what I mean? Like, So, yeah, good environment.
What's the overall feedback from the students? And not just from the ones that you've done, the interviews on the podcast with, but just being there and talking to them. Like, what are you taking away from what they're saying?
So, I mean, one of the things I picked up on was a lot of hope for the future. A lot of, excitement for what they were learning. Because I think even if you're, well, I mean, I don't know how, I didn't ask how many were watch people, but I think the majority of them, one thing I picked up on was when they got into the course, they realized just how much there was to learn. And I think a lot of them realized that they're not going to ever learn everything. And I think for people with inquisitive minds, people who want to do, that's a good thing, right? I think when you're a military or a veteran, you don't look at that as a negative thing. I think a lot of civilian people will be like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. But for the veteran, you're like, oh, hell yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I'm never going to learn this stuff, right? And it's a drive to learn more, and honest, in some ways, it's like, I don't know about everyone else, but the other services called MOSs, but in ratings, like in my rating as a firefighter, like showing someone up once in a while was kind of fun, or knowing a little nugget that someone else didn't know. And that wasn't going on in the school, but you could just tell that a lot of them knew that they were in for it, and they were happy because they were just going to continue to learn. And I think that continuing education combined with the fact that they could actually get some gainful employment when graduating the class, it suits both of you, right? There's got to be something in Maslow's hierarchy of needs where you're like, I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to learn while I also continue to be able to take care of myself. Right.
But eventually it's a self-fulfilling thing, though. It's like the more I learn, the better I can take care of myself. Right.
Yeah. And
you come out of the school, you're not working for Patek.
No.
But you come out of the school and you do well.
Yeah.
And you learn some more skills, and you learn a hierarchy, and you learn some other structures, and then all of a sudden, okay, yeah, you can go work for Patek.
Yeah. And I think, the one other thing was, some of the instructors that were there were graduates from the first course.
That's
and like Jason Adams, the first episode 87, Jason goes back at least once or twice a year. And sometimes, he said he just shows up and they let him teach a course.
Of course.
He's like, hey, you know what I mean?
Though? It's like, you'd
be surprised. Some people don't, but these guys do.
But like, look at it from that. So it's like, you've come through the system, and then you've also gone on and done something else. So you can bring something back in.
Oh yeah.
You have valuable information that nobody else has, but you also understand the structure that you came from. And that's golden. That's a golden opportunity. 100%.
And I forget who it was. But going back and touching on, the word family, one of them said that he went to Sam and said, Sam, what happens if I get out there and I don't make it? And Sam says, you're part of the family now. Just come back here.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, because you wouldn't be quote unquote useful to some company out there doesn't mean you're not useful to the school and your fellow veterans from this education you've received. Right. And I think that's the crux of the whole thing, right? Is just like, there is a gem in Odessa, Delaware that people need to know about that actually takes care of our veterans. If the veterans want to do a little bit of work and want to, learn how to be watchmakers. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if someone else followed suit and was like, veterinary school, like the Veterans Veterinary Initiative or something, teach people how to be veterinarians, or something like that. Because in reality, I have a firm belief, like, is there startup cost? Yeah. You got to get all the material, right? Like, you got to, how to operate and maintain and all this stuff. But, if you have donors and you get to the point to where you have the equipment and you have the stuff, and then you get enough donations where you're able to, I know a lot of the instructors are carte blanche, right? They work for free. So, but it behooves the industry as a whole.
Watchmakers are needed desperately.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You want someone that's going to A, show up on time. B, 8 hours? Are you kidding me? I could work 8 hours standing on my head.
Easy.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
In air conditioning?
In Delaware?
Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to hit myself in the face with a wrench. The only thing the watch is going to shoot at me might be a spring of some kind. You know what I
Spring
mean?
bar
Like,
coming out, yeah.
you know, it's a no brainer. And the only thing I'll add is like, if you're a veteran and watchmaking is not your thing, just spend an afternoon on Google. And I know Google's getting weird now with search results, but whatever search engine you use, there's a lot more stuff out there than you would think program wise for veterans. If you just invest a little bit of time and effort, that can offer you opportunities to kind of, bend the course of your life if that's something you need.
So to kind of close it out here, what are we looking at for the future of the school? Because they've got, are they looking at like, AWCI certification? Are they looking at, high complications? What's going on? What's their next steps? Did they talk to you about that at all?
I will interview Sam Kanan, the director, on the first week of August. So he's the final episode. I wanted to do that because I wanted people to hear the stories of the students first.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, well, they got the head guy on there. Yeah. But I figured Sam would do the very best job, like wrapping it all up and giving a 35,000 foot view. I know that the goal for the school is to always get bigger and be able to incorporate more students at the appropriate student to instructor ratio, right? I know the goal is to pump out qualified watchmakers, right? Number 2. And then number 3, I think that eventually, a larger campus. And I remember them talking about this, like long-term goals in 2021, eventually not being in a former
ambulance depot,
and maybe having something like a small campus to where
abandoned mental institution, a step up.
I think that's awesome. I mean,
it would be perfect.
There's nothing that speaks former military base like an abandoned insane asylum. I mean, those buildings are probably better. Again, these are my opinions.
100%. No, I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Like that'd be a fantastic use of space.
But anyone that wants to know can just go to the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative website. They do a pretty good job of updating it currently. Take a look in there. They have tons of stuff on the website. They have all the programs broken down. They have the history. They have the about stuff, where they're located. A tab to donate. I've personally donated money from my podcast. It's not a whole lot because my podcast doesn't make any money. But I believe in the school, right? And I believe, the one thing that we all know is that the one thing I can't get back in time is time. And the VWI doesn't pay me anything. I've only been up there once. They didn't even know that I was going to do this. I just let them know when I was talking. I'm like, hey, I'd like to do this. Is there any way to get some students on? And shout out to Kimberly Daniels. She's like the go-to person over at the VWI. She's set up and organized with everybody. She's got them all lined up for me to knock them down. And then they have a special event every year. They do this thing with Frank Sinatra under the stars in Delaware. So it's going to be this September. So I plan on going up there this September to celebrate that evening, because I just freaking have not ran across anything else in my life after the military that I believe in more than this school. I wish I had found it right before I retired, because I would have threw myself into it and gave it a go. People have asked me now, like, why don't you do it now? I'm like, well, I have a pretty good job now. And I feel like now I'd be taking a spot from someone that really needs it. You know what I mean?
There's a difference, because you don't have the same level of desperation anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have the same need to find purpose. And like your points that I don't want to take a spot from some of this. I get that. There's a limited instructor to pupil ratio. They've got to be able to compensate for that and to expand with that. But it doesn't sound like they're exceeding that. And I think that that's really important to note, that the quality that they're looking for and the quality of the candidate that they pump out to be able to integrate into, I mean, let's face it, watchmaking is not a sloppy business. Watchmaking is a very precise business. It's a very clean business. It's a very organized. There's maybe not a level of OCD, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's there. And like, if you can do that and you can keep your space clean and you can work within the confines and you can work within the parameters, like, this is what I can do and this is what I can't do. And I think that a veteran is a fantastic place for that to happen. We've been a supporter, like, as soon as we realized what was going on with the school, like, we've been supporting this from the get-go. from our end, and it's a fantastic idea. It's a fantastic explanation, and it's so cool that you got the chance to actually go.
Yeah,
go and have the conversations.
And I plan on going up there soon when the episode series wraps up. Like I said, there's that event in September, but I would like to go up around the turn of the year, and when they have the next course start, and then do another like update to my tour where, because now I have a really good camera, go up there and take some good pictures, maybe do some video interviews when we're up there, short little things to put on the website, and just get the word out about the school, because it's just the opportunity to change someone's lives there. And
huge.
And you never know who needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also true.
That's the thing. Just to recap here a little bit, the website is Veterans Watchmaker Initiative.org. You had talked real quick about donating. There is a section on there under the contribute tab. Yep. Not only do they accept monetary donations, but you can donate equipment, you can volunteer, you can donate your time. There's other ways to donate other than just monetary donations. And I really feel like they're not going to turn away much.
No.
I mean, if you're interested in getting involved somehow and you just can't afford to do it financially, go to the website, take a look, see what you can do to donate something, to help out this cause. Because it's like we had said before, this is all provided free of charge for the students. And this, it doesn't just happen on its own. So, again, Veterans Watchmaker Initiative.org. Like Jason was saying, everything is laid out real nice there. They have videos that you can watch and everything, the descriptions of the programs. If you are interested in joining the program, I believe it's right on the very first page. There's a form you can fill out. It says, "Are you interested?" Fill out the form. And I would imagine you get a phone call or an email or something like that just kind of starts the communication back and forth between you and the school. So
there's all different kind of buttons. There's a general information button if you're a retailer and you want to work with them, sales. And then you can click if you're interested in the technician program or the watchmaker program, donations. And there's even a media press one. So like quite a few people have reached out to me, and I've pointed them in the direction of Kim. And, I'm not going to name any names, but one pretty big Instagram feed that turned into like a blog, very interesting stuff. And then a couple of watch brands, and I've pointed them in the direction of Kim. But if you just want to skip it, you can go here and click the media press. They get back to you really quick.
Yeah. It's always within their best interest. So everything about that sounds fantastic.
If you have questions, feel free to email us. You can DM us. You can go to Jason at Watchrolling. We may not have the answers, but we can definitely help push you in the right direction and get you connected with the people that would have the answers. As of when this episode comes out, you, I believe, will have finished your 4 student interviews. So, and the Sam interview is to come after you're listening to what you're listening to right now. So if you're interested in hearing firsthand from the students, go to the Watchrolling Podcast. What are you on? Are you YouTube?
You can find me where you find all your podcasts. So I did the interview series audio only because when it comes to my fellow veterans, I ask about, privacy is a big thing, man.
Sure.
And I'll say it for people. Some people have done some things in some places where there are still people out there that would like to get back at people.
Right.
So you got to be really careful with people's identities. And so when it came to the interview series for the veterans, I offered them, and I basically just said, we'll do audio. So anywhere you get your audio podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast, whatever, Stitcher, which I don't think is around anymore. Some other ones.
So the series starts with your episode 87.
Yes.
So if you want to look for these specifically, starts at episode 87, 88, 89, 90 will be the last student interview. Go back, listen to these. I mean, the stories that these guys have to tell is just phenomenal. It may touch you in a certain way. It may, just get you a little more involved. And then listen to the Sam interview, because I feel like, and I'm looking forward to hearing that one.
Yeah.
In our involvement with Bulova and Michael, and hearing him talk about Sam and his dedication and everything that he puts into the school, like this school is Sam's life. Like Sam lives and breathes this school. So I cannot wait to hear that interview and what he has to say, and just the information that he has to offer.
I have a feeling that interview is going to be me asking like 10 questions and letting Sam just take off.
And just go. Yeah. Just let him run.
Yeah. Because I've talked to him before, and he's that way. It's like he's similar to Mike Pearson of Christopher Ward, formerly of Zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
You can just ask Mike a question and it's like rack the shotgun and he's off to the races.
We're off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad, because people need to hear it from the people that do the work.
Well, 100%.
Sam has definitely done the work.
Yeah.
Well, last call.
Thanks,
gentlemen.
Jason, thanks for coming on. This has been wonderful. It's been great to have this discussion.
So, Mike, you guys know you're near and dear in my heart, special for different reasons. Joe, because you live close to where I'm from. Mike, because you're from the most humid state I've ever been to in my life.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Do you have anything? Any last call topic you want to discuss? Any?
No, I just I appreciate everyone taking the time. I mean, I really do. It's a happy little accident to stumble across this school, but I'm going to do the very best I can to get the word out about the school, because it really, really can change someone's life. And just, if you're in, actually, if you're in the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area,
there it is,
or anywhere between DC and Raleigh, and you're interested in joining a Red Bar chapter, I, along with my buddy Chris, who's at Poppin' Crowns on Instagram, we are fortunate enough to be
Pink
the
NATO gang.
Pink NATO gang. Shout out Chris. I love that guy. And we're fortunate enough to be the co-founders of Red Bar Virginia Beach.
That's awesome. That's
very new.
Cool.
Yeah, very new. We have our first meetup scheduled, but we're going to pump that stuff out. Just go look at us at Red Bar Virginia Beach on Instagram, or redbarvirginiabeach@gmail.com, and we'll be able to get you pointed in the right direction if you want to join. We're really looking forward. We're already in the double-digit membership pretty quick, and so it's looking pretty good. But if you want to have a place in the what do we call it, the Mid-Atlantic, Hampton Roads coastal area, where you can just dust watches all the way from Casios all the way up to whatever, and just be around other watch enthusiasts, and where you're spotting that location. And if you're a little far away and you want to go to other ones, we can point you in those directions too.
And if you're a part of it, I have no doubt that it's going to be a very welcoming group.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Listen, man, that's me and Chris we actually met today and talked about a little bit of stuff, but that was the first thing. And if you're around me and Chris, we couldn't be more different in a lot of ways, but very similar,
but the same
in the same, at the same way. Right. But it's a understanding based on mutual respect. That dude drives and works just as hard as I do. And, and if you follow our Instagrams, like, our collections couldn't be more different.
You're way diverse. You're way diverse.
But I dig his stuff.
I've been following both of you, and the discussions that you've been having to be as inclusive as you can. And it's like, look, I got my first Timex. I got a vintage Swatch. I have a Casio. I have a Rolex. I have a whatever. And then everybody can come into the same room and have a drink and appreciate each other's watch. Then, man, you're gold. Yeah. There's no way you can go wrong.
That's the gist of it, bro. Like, let's get together. Let's talk some watches. I want to see some cool stuff that I've never seen before. And I'm going to shout out who's Red Bar Raleigh. Those guys up there, Troy, Charlie, and Brian. We were Red Bar Raleigh members before we did this. We would drive to Raleigh a couple of times because that group was so inviting, so welcoming. You had watches up and down the board. Everyone was cool. You could handle the stuff, look at it. I mean, the freaking, came from there. Like, it's just, we wanted to model our chapter off of theirs because it was always a great time. Never felt out of place. So shout out those guys. And then if I know Chris and I feel if we bring like, 75% of that of what Raleigh brings, then we're going to be successful. And so, again, Red Bar Virginia Beach at gmail.com and or at Red Bar Virginia Beach on Instagram. Shoot us a message. We'll put you in the right direction to get on.
All right. Well, next time I'm out visiting the in-laws, I'll see if I can.
Always welcome. Listen, if you clowns come out and don't let me know, it's going to be a problem. I'm going to collect. Yeah. I'm going to collect some caravel tax.
There it is.
Fair enough. Yeah.
All right. So I went to the Intersect Watch Show. It was a Independence Watch Show, and there were a bunch. Christopher Ward was there. Vero was there. Vayer was there. Ferrer was there. Dryden, Tornik Rayville, bunch of different, smaller brands, but I went there with our friend Oliver, Watches with Oliver, who has his own little video show podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I talked about some stuff. He did some filming. I'm not sure when that's going to be out. I assume next weekend after. But it was a neat event, great space, intimate, small, great sampling of the different brands that were there. And everybody had something interesting to say. There was a whole, I was wearing my vintage Accutron Deep Sea A, the double crown with the orange internal rotating bezel. Few different brands had done that. There was a lot of DLC coatings. There were really interesting executions of dive watches and of field watches. The Vero's got this fantastic. They've got a couple really functional watches, but they've got this really great sort of skin diver-esque with a lume dial and then a white dial. But all of that aside, Marin, M-A-R-I-N, Marin Instruments has got a skin diver. They got a white dial. They've got a black dial. They've got a PVD case, and it's available in all of that. That was by far for me the standout of the whole show. And that's with the Christopher Ward Bel Canto and the Christopher Ward colored and integrated bracelet stuff.
Wow.
It was a good time. But then on top of that, it was a meetup for a bunch of the OC Chrono guys that I hang out with. And so, somebody showed up, he bought a visitor watch, and we got to look at that and, see the case back. And that was exceptional. People coming in with their various different watches. A man came in with his wife, and it was a higher end Cartier, but it wasn't Cartier. The movements came from Switzerland, but they came via the Titanic. The story's phenomenal. Really? Oh yeah. He had the movements, and he realized that the women and children, but the boat wasn't the rowboat wasn't full, so he jumped in with movements and then sold them in Hollywood. This is a watch that Jack Benny bought for his daughter, and they have the documentation to go with it. I'm like, come on,
that's
dude.
Crazy.
It was fantastic. It's like and it's that kind of experience and that kind of thing that happens if you get the chance to go to any of these watch meetups or go to any of these independent shows, because the people that are there are so passionate and they're so vested in what they do, and they're willing to talk to you about anything. And so even better, like I'm there with Oliver. Oliver's wearing his Caravel Sea Hunter 6X5, which is like the first iteration of that, which drew a lot of looks. And people were like, "Oh, let me see that." And then they're talking about it. I had on the Deep Sea A, which also got a lot of looks, except the best part was talking with the watchmaker at Dryden, who was looking at it and is like, "Oh yeah, I have one of those." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got a guy local who does." And he's like, "No, I'm a watchmaker. I can fix it myself." I'm like, "Oh, you can fix Accutron. Look at you."
There you go.
Nice.
Did you make a new friend?
You never know. Accutron's making friends everywhere I go.
Yeah. Jason, it has been a lot of fun having you on here.
Oh, it's been a blast, man.
Again, you are one of our OG guests. This goes back to when we first started the show. We did a interview with a watch collector series, and you were one of those first guests that we had on. I don't know.
We didn't even touch on any of that. Good.
I know. Should we bring that back?
Bring it back. I'll come on as a collector and share my collection with you guys.
There it is.
Because your collection has changed and grown since.
You've had alterations like we all have, but you've grown.
I learned through experience, my friends.
Indeed, sir. Indeed.
So let me put this out there. In addition to Jason, if you want to be on the show, if you're a collector or you're an enthusiast,
reach out
to us.
Yeah,
you find us on Instagram at the Spring Bar Podcast. Send us a DM, email us. Let us know that you want to be on the show. We'd love to talk to somebody about your
ideas,
collecting
man.
or whatever.
We're working
this out.
We're not
Watch this.
scraping for ideas,
Are you
this
a
is
watch
my invitation.
Are you a watch enthusiast who gets tired of your voice never being heard? Guess what? On the Spring Bar Podcast, you can have your voice heard because
we can be your voice.
That's 12% of the reason why I started my podcast. You get tired of talking. You get tired of talking at the speaker, or you get tired of talking at the screen. You're like, you know what? Now you get your own mic, you get your own headset. You go on the Spring Bar Podcast, you let it roll.
We need you to record our promos.
Yeah, right.
Oh God!
For a small fee, I'll send in bottles of wine. It'll be great.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, Joe,
Mike, how do we get in touch?
This evening, you, myself, and Jason, we all make up the Spring Bar Podcast. You can find us on Instagram at the Spring Bar Podcast. You can email us to springbarpodcast@gmail.com. On a personal level, I am 120 clicks, all spelled out, one long word, 120 clicks. Joe?
I am Watch Taylor You've, all one word, EUPH, Watch Taylor You've. Jason, how can we find you?
At Watchrolling on Instagram and at watchrolling@gmail.com.
Perfect.
And then again, the podcast on all your podcast platforms.
Wherever you find your podcast services.
Yeah.
I'm really bad about that.
You know, it's fine. So are we. Our tens of listeners will appreciate it.
Gentlemen, my glass is empty. I don't know about you guys. Yeah,
also,
yours is too.
Bottle.
That is. So until next time, when Joe and Jason get together and discuss the
wines. Oh, it's
gonna
be good, dude. It's gonna be so good.
Until next time, gentlemen. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.